Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome in, welcome back. We've taken a little bit of a break there to really ramp up and get ready for Warriors Con. We just attended the 10th annual Warriors Convention. It was absolutely amazing. I cannot speak more highly of it. And if you did not attend in person, hopefully you were able to catch us online. When I say it was amazing, I'm saying it was just amazing. This group of people, Dr. Bailey, Sharonda, and Sharonda's team and the whole team did an amazing and outstanding job. We had so much to talk about, and so this is what we're going to do today. We're going to start off with Dr. Raleigh doing some breath work just for a few minutes, and then we're going to roll into kind of what we talked about at WarriorCon in regards to mental health, and maybe we're going to end with maybe how we can invest in ourselves, give ourselves a little bit of time back because we're all finding ourselves in a season of a little fatigue and a little overworkedness. So we're going to kind of go from there, and then we're going to close out with 3 collective breaths. So thank you again for joining us, and I'll let Dr. Raleigh take it away.
Well, before that, am I going to get a T-shirt?
I don't know. I am not responsible for the T-shirts.
You have a 10th annual. We're loving it.
I did because I actually went to the conference, so they were passing them out when you were checking in. So you may. I don't know.
Okay.
That is not a question for me.
Hope I get a T-shirt. All right, everyone. Hey there, hi there, ho there. I am Dr. Carolyn Rowley, Executive Director at Kayan Wellness Center. We're thrilled to have you here. And Heather is right. We've been away a while preparing for the Warriors Convention and soon the 15th Annual Sickle Cell Disease Educational Summit. But first, we're here. So let us bring it back right now. So, whatever is happening, turn off your phone, silence it. If you're in a room by yourself and there's no one else, lower uh, let the natural sunlight in, maybe turn off the light. But let's be present with one another right now because we get so much when we're just together because we know we can step right back over that line and get back into the business. But we're hoping that by being here, you would have slowed it down a little bit. So, why don't we do that? And we're going to do some deep breathing and mindful breathing to get you all with us right now. So, if you're sitting as I and Heather, if you can have your feet firmly planted on the floor, not in terms of where you're crossing your legs or crossing your ankles, just firmly planted. And you can have your hands either face down on your knees or in an upward position in terms of receiving. And so I like to start off with upwards to receive everything that's coming in that's positive. And if we can do that, if you're laying down, that's fine too. Just get into a comfortable position. We're going to begin. And if you, sometimes we're very tense, so we're going to try to get through some of the tenseness and but find a comfortable place. Have your hands up or whatever is comfortable, and let's get started. So, right now, just become mindful of the breath that you are taking, and pretty soon we'll do our in 3, hold 3, and out 6. That seems like a lot, I know, but we're just going to get comfortable with our breath for right now and just be mindful of our breathing. And as we're mindful of our breathing, we can breathe in through the nose and hold, release through the nose. Breathe in through the nose. 3. And breathe out 6, all the way out. And now let's just become aware of your thighs and just that heaviness of just being relaxed. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out 6. Breathe in. Hold. And breathe out. And then next, if you can just become aware of your forehead and being able to just release that tension. Breathe in. Hold. And breathe out. Breathe in. Hold. And out. Now just focus on your jaw muscles and relaxing the jaw. Breathe in. Hold. And out. Again. Breathe in. Hold. And out for 6. Breathe in. This time I'm going to just focus on just feeling healed. Breathe in. And breathe out. And breathe in. I just mean feeling healed from the stress, pain. Hold. Out. Again. And out. This time we're going to just prepare for our talk today by just being in a receiving mood from the discussion and participation. Breathe in. Hold. And out. And one more time. In. Hold. And out. Okay, you can open your eyes and welcome back. And so thanks for being present. Heather?
Well, everyone, well, thank you for that, Dr. Riley. I needed that. I didn't realize how much I needed that, but I really did. So I really appreciate it. And I hope that if we have any of our guests are listening today, welcome again. And today we're kind of going to review what we went over at WarriorCon and what some of the things we talked about. We talked about a lot of great things. Dr. Riley did an amazing session on, I believe, sound therapy.
Yes.
And I unfortunately wasn't able to catch all of it. I heard bits and pieces of it.
That was fun. That
Tell
was
me about it.
so we've had, I think, twice at Cayenne, featured sound, and we had someone do that. But myself, presenting and doing a little bit more research, became really aware of what tones, I mean, and people were commenting on certain tones that really resonated. A couple of people said at first they had to kind of get used to that. Um, and we had that for 10 minutes. It actually was really good. And I realized too that in terms of the tone, I liked the middle sound, not things that were a little piercing or too bass. And that was for me. But overall, I think together it made for being relaxed and focusing your brain. In other words, you were really present in the moment, and
Mhm, mhm.
I didn't find myself going here, there, and everywhere.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing to hear because
10 minutes.
that's one of my hardest things to do is when I'm meditating and I'm in that space is to stay focused. I have to always return to the counting in my breath work because if I don't, my brain is like, I am 17 million tabs away from where I started. I call about my web browsers. I know people can usually relate to having, you know, 40 web browser windows open. Well, I probably have more than that. And I'm usually in my brain, I'm thinking of all these windows that I need to close. So I'm wondering if me delving into a little bit more of that with the group and by myself would help me be able to stay in that moment.
I think so. And the link that we shared was one that I liked. It was only 10 minutes. So that's something that
Mhm, mhm.
we do. I think that if a person has difficulty settling down before they go to bed, if they do this, I think they would be able to be calm and in a rested state to be able to sleep. Because some warriors have problems getting to sleep, staying asleep. I think this would help. I really do. Um, so we like it so much that we're going to be offering, as soon as we get our new location, we're actually going to be offering this as a form of therapy. So,
Wonderful.
health. And I think that for now, I haven't figured out if we're going to do a virtual version, but at least in person, in terms of where we're going to be located, I want to be able to offer that to the community. I find that it can be very helpful, and it's a way to again to come together as a community. So that's very challenging these days. I think
Yes.
it's opening up a little bit more, but coming together as a community can be very helpful. So I enjoyed researching it. Enjoyed doing it, participating in it. I think others did as well. And it's something that you're going to hear more about, I believe.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm so sad that I didn't get to sit and really take it in. I mean, I'm really sad that I missed it. However, Dr. Deja Brewer and I and Dima were able to do a couple of really good sessions. We really got into some movement with a lot of the people at the summit. We had a lot of people show up to our movement exercises. I wasn't in a space to where I could be doing a lot of movement, unfortunately, so I had to kind of do the limited versions of
Okay.
what all the stretching and the maneuvering. But we had some really great conversations. And because I have sickle cell brain and I like to write things down, we talked about what brings us joy. We talked about our narrative. And we ended with talking about a poem. And it was a poem with for people with complicated grief. And it talks about how people with sickle cell, as we are, we deal with grief. We deal with the loss of a lot of things, the loss of normalcy or of the everyday sometimes. Um, so just to dive into a little bit about what brings you joy, that was how we started. And it was really a cool way to kind of start the convention off in talking about um, what kind of things bring you in. And Dr. Dejois was really saying, how do we talk to ourselves? That was kind of, it was like a two-part series about how we speak to ourselves and what we're saying to ourselves. And if we're talking about the things that bring us joy versus the things that bring us sadness, does that change our being? And it does, right?
It does.
So for me, I remember thinking like, what brings me the most joy is understanding that I'm able to get past challenges day by day. And I have this massive amount of faith. I think that you do as well, where you just know that God's going to provide for us into tomorrow. And, if he desires for us to see tomorrow, that he will provide everything that we need in that day.
Definitely.
And so that was, for me, was what brings me joy, was the fact that even though today may be hard, there is tomorrow.
And we would like for you all as well to put that in the chat. I think for myself, just hearing it right now and participating. So, faith, um, yes, have had it since 5. The beautiful thing about getting older is that, and with wisdom, let's put it that way, you can get older and still be shaking in your faith. I think for myself, knowing that he woke me up this morning is already done and prepared. And so, even when it seemed there are days that literally are back to back to back to back to back to back meetings, and I barely have time to even go to the restroom and do all of this, it's actually okay. I'm doing what's needed to be done with the energy that he's given me to be able to do it. um, Checking off whatever, but it's not according to me. Because for me, when I wake up, I always say, since I've been seventh grade, um, and it's pretty much always the same in terms of I live this day for you. So it's not about me and my long list. It's about what needs to be done. So there's joy in just knowing. Having faith feels good. Um, I don't know what it feels like to not have it. I would think, I don't even want to think, I don't know. But because it's comforting to know, it gets hard um, when the days, when there's a lot, when you're having to do more than one thing um, with family and work and extended family and friends. There is a lot. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But the blessing is that, as you already said, there's tomorrow. He woke us up. And on this day, I want to make sure that I'm present about my relationship with you, doing the work that I do stellarly, whatever it is that I actually need to do. And actually, there's joy. But Dr. Billy thinks I'm a nerd, the nerdiest of nerds. So we have a contest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was there for that.
Here's the thing. I get joy from I'm going to share. So yesterday, I went to the hotel that we already, had selected for the
Mhm,
summit.
mhm.
And it was 3.5 hours with our person. And then I said, this was wonderful. Now I know it was work, but it just felt good for me to make sure that everything was all dotted and crossed. We were on the same page and it felt good. That's a joy for me. It may seem trivial, but because when you're perfectionistic in so many ways and you want things to come out, you have to put the time and energy to do that. So I can check off that that was done. The person was pleasant. So that even made it even more joyful. Because if it wasn't, I would have had to call the supervisor. And but she was so pleasant, knowledgeable. We're on the same page. We went through everything, and that felt good. It really did. It just felt good. So even in the smallest things, or when things are unexpected and someone grants you a compliment, that's joyful. So I like to see what people are writing in the chat, particularly if you were there, share with me because I wasn't there in person.
Carla wrote, comforting to know this particular challenge shall pass. It's
Definitely.
very comforting to have that idea to know that. Um, I was actually talking to someone who I mentor. I mentor a few young women, and I was talking to one of them in particular, and we were talking about, she was very upset with the way something was going. And I said, and she's like, but why does it keep happening? Why does these things keep happening? I said, well, they're different things. And she's like, yeah, but it's just always something. And I said, unfortunately, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, there's always
Some
something. And
oh,
that's just life. That, like when I got home, I did not think I'd have to take my dog to the vet and sit around and carry him to the bathroom for a week. But I'm here at home doing that because there's always something.
always.
And she was like, well, that's horrible. And I said, but that's unfortunate. That's life, right? It's how we look at those good moments. It's how we take in the joyful moments and not focus on those hardships because there's always something.
Always.
Um, and I know someone said, I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I said, there are times in my life, and I can be completely honest with this group, that I have felt like that. Like everything's going so well. And you're like, oh Lord, what's going to happen next? But then I have to check myself. And I've gotten really good at stopping myself and saying, nope, we are going to live right now in this beautiful weather with a full tank of gas, driving wherever we got to go, because look at how blessed we are in this moment, you know? And why are we worried about tomorrow? Because tomorrow's not here yet. And we'll never actually get to tomorrow, right? Because tomorrow will be today. So right now, in this moment where you are, and if it's great, it's great. Be thankful that you're in it. Um, and if it's not so great, understand that that moment will pass. And, you know, I get that we all go through hard times, and sometimes it's so hard to see the other side of the positive in a really negative situation. And, I can speak to this. My father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and my family has been working to keep him on track. Me, especially, I've really been working with his doctors and my parents and my family, even from here in Texas, to keep my dad on track emotionally, mentally, physically, because I'm a doer. I think all of us warriors really are doers. We like to get things done and see results. I tell everyone I am not bossy, I'm results oriented. Um, I love the results. So I want to see things get better and I want to see things progress. And I think that sometimes I could have looked at that and said, this is my world's ending. But in reality, this is just something else we need to work towards. There's a goal. The goal at the end of this, and what is that goal? And how do we continue to push to reach that goal? What is our goals? Let's figure out what's next. No point in being, someone said to me, oh, I'm really depressed. And I'm like, okay, you can be depressed for the next 10 minutes. You can't live in that. And I'm not talking about mental health depression. I get that there is a different type of depression. I'm talking about when someone just is, when you're sad in the moment and you feel overwhelmed. I feel like that all the time. But like if y'all saw my desk right now, y'all would be like, what is going on? Because I'm a little overwhelmed. There's a lot going on, a lot of different things going on. But all I know is I can only do one thing at a time. Well, I can do multiple things at a time poorly, but I can do one thing at a time very well. So I have a little cube that has numbers on it and it times me, and I take 15 minutes and I say, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on this project uninterrupted, 15 minutes. And I go for it for 15 minutes. And then I let my mind wander and I might pick out something else to do. But I find that understanding that it's just what's next. What's the next step? And kind of doing a deep dive on what's next. What's our next step? Instead of taking it all in one big massive mound and wearing the world on your shoulders, you try to figure out what is in the next 5 minutes, what can I do? If it's over 5 minutes, I can't think about it. And it's so funny. I'm sure Dr. Raleigh understands this. When people ask me about my calendar, I'm going home to help my dad out this weekend, and I want to see a couple of my friends. And they're like, well, what's your calendar look like? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not there yet. I'll let you know when I land because my soul just can't, I can't do that to myself in this space because right now I have a couple of other prerequisite projects to take care of before I even think about flying out, like packing and packing my son. My son is going to go with me. So I think it's important that we we take smaller bites as a whole.
And I was going to piggyback. So I think part of not feeling so overwhelmed is when a person feels prepared, meaning you don't know what's going to happen, but when it happens, isn't it nice to know that um, you have someone in your corner who may know this, or you may have been there before, so you have the tools. So, what I mean by prepared is when you're not prepared, is when it actually can feel magnified
Yeah.
that you may have been there before, or oh, I know who I can call. That's what I mean. And that's
Building up your toolkit and
definitely
yeah, having those people around you who you can call on and reach out to when you need that. Um,
yes.
I think that that comes with age. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any quick ways to. I mean, I guess there are some people out there who are just, naturally, inclined to meet people after people and have those unlimited resources. I'm not one of those people. I live here in Dallas, primarily with just me and my husband and my son. So for me, I had to learn how to pull back and find resources from all over to help me with what I need. I had to learn how to be very self-sufficient, but still when to make a phone call, when to send an email. Yeah, that's hard. It's building your toolkit. I always say, don't burn your bridges. Because
Mhm.
you never know when you're going to need someone.
Right. But also, too, Heather, knowing when to say that this relationship has run its course as
Oh
well.
yeah. Yeah. Not holding on to toxic. We don't hold on to toxic relationships. If anyone knows me, they know I'm direct enough to tell people when I can no longer be their friend. And it's not even just about being people's friends. Sometimes it's just this relationship isn't healthy for me. Um, there are many relationships that have come across my feet, and you just have to stop and say, wait, is this healthy? Um, and to me, Dr. Raleigh says something else. I think I've heard her say it quite often. She says, "Is it helping or hurting?" Is that what you say? Isn't that one of your lines? Is this helping or hurting? Don't you say that, Dr. Raleigh?
I may have said it in a different way, yes. But seriously, is it helping?
I think it's important to think about how people enter our lives.
Serious.
And something else that we really kind of did a deep dive into our over the week was about your narrative, like
Okay.
the story you tell yourselves that we did at Warrior Con. We talked about what you speak. And Dr. Marjorie had us all do an exercise where we said, what's the one negative thing that you tell yourself? And then what's the positive that you could say? Or how can you change that? And something that I wrote was, I'm tired.
Mm.
Uh, because I feel like I notice that when I say that to myself more, I feel tired more. And when I stop saying it and start saying things like, you've got this, you have energy, um, your feet are under you, you woke up, you sat up, you're anointed, walk in your anointing. When I say those things and those affirmations to myself, I immediately stop feeling so tired. And it's amazing how we speak our own life into us. Um, so that is something that a lot of people shared about just the ways that we kind of come down on ourselves.
Yes. And I think to add to that, that's actually a very good example because when a person says, I'm tired, I'm sure that the physical fatigue is real. And we're not wanting you all to not acknowledge that which you might be feeling. I think, though, what Heather is saying is, but to speak it, for me, I would rather acknowledge, because the acknowledgement means that you can now do something. Some of us just continue to keep going, not acknowledging the circumstance, and all of a sudden you may have a pain episode or what have you. But to get on top of that and to avoid that, I think the acknowledgement of you may be spent. So instead of saying I'm tired, what can I do? For me, I always assess quickly, have I drank enough? And it's not my association with water is positive. It's just that I work a lot, and I don't recognize sometimes that I don't. And the proof is in the urine. So um,
I agree. The same way.
so it's not that I don't like water. I do. I have a good relationship, but that's the proof, right? And so if I'm acknowledging something physically going on, I immediately do want to do an assessment. And so I can acknowledge on Friday, that's when I do my Pilates and gyrotonic, and I do that. I have meetings in the morning. I do that, and then I do all my cooking. And I was disappointed because I wasn't able to. I pushed it, but I wasn't able to do my workout. Why? Because I found myself catching my breath. And so then I had to say, what's this about? So I thought, well, I am drinking. Let's continue to drink. Um, but my only concern about going, I could have went. My concern about going, that I think I would have pushed the limit beyond, and then would have been trying to work that out. So I canceled, which I never do, and I wanted to figure that out. So I actually um, began to just be more conscious of hydration, and then but everything else felt good, right? There was no pain. But why was it I was trying to catch my breath and I wasn't even doing anything? And so I began to do deep breathing, mindful breathing, because maybe I wasn't paying attention to my breath. So I began to do that. And again, ultimately felt good. I'm blessed. So I always ultimately, I think, feel good. But I just became aware of whatever was happening. I wanted to be on top of it. So that just meant I had to stop and take care of that. So I was breathing and I was hydrating. There was no pain. And that was the beautiful thing. I just didn't, when you're working out, you're expelling more oxygen, more energy. And I didn't want to find myself in a place where I didn't want to be. So that's what I mean by just being mindful, not telling yourself. I didn't say that I was tired or even that I was ill. I just stopped to say, I'm having difficulty catching my breath. Let's see what we can actually do. And um, I guess I can say it. I can trust you guys. So I didn't tell my doctor because she would have wanted me to come in. I don't have time for that. And I love her and she loves me, but I figured, let me just slow down, figure out what was happening. And I feel fine. And I don't have that same feeling about trying to catch my breath. I actually feel good. So
Well, Ferran wrote, "Hi, ladies. Pretending to be fine is exhausting emotionally, and physically, and can impact your well-being." And I don't think that we're talking about being fine, right? I think that that's what Dr. Rowley is saying is we don't necessarily say, "Oh, I'm fine." I think it's saying, instead of speaking like I'm always tired or I'm always in pain, instead of saying those words, you say, "Today I'm not feeling my best," which is true. Still, it's not a lie. And it's also saying, how can I, but then it's taking the ownership and figuring out how to adjust that, right? Dr. Rowley said doing a self-check, um, drinking your fluids. To me, I do the same thing. I do deep breathing when I'm not feeling my best. I'm figuring out, like, are my lungs fully expanding? Am I having pain anywhere else? because a lot of times I have pain sometimes in very specific parts. I have had a lot of pulmonary embolisms over my life, so my lungs are a little raggedy. So if I'm having pain in my chest, I want to figure out, am I having pain in my shoulders or my arms? Sometimes one pain will usurp another pain. I don't know if people realize, like, to me, if you're in pain really bad in my arms, I may not feel the pain in my back. That can be an issue for me. So something that I have to think about, like, how's my body reacting overall? Taking a moment to just figure out where you are in your space, but also truly, I think it is speaking life into yourself, right? It is allowing yourself to see a better tomorrow, even, or a better next moment, even if this moment really sucks, because we need a lot of joy and we need a lot of hope. And without those things, life is tough. Um, there's someone in this world who brings me so much joy, and she knows it. And I call her Black Girl Joy, and because she's just like this ball of joy. And whenever I talk to her, I literally feel renewed. And there's not a lot of people who do that for me in this world. So sometimes I'm like, I just needed to call because I just needed to feel refreshed. I needed someone to speak life when I couldn't. And it's so helpful.
Heather, I want to thank you for that. Um, it is nice, a blessing to have someone like that. Um, I want to go back though to Farron because you were very specific in terms of pretending to be fine is exhausting, and it is. So I think we've spoken about this before. We have to ch- know when and with whom to be honest about where we're at and to be able to share. Um, I remember during our Arthur's Corner, Genesis was talking about her book, and just what you're saying about this. I think it was called Fine. I can't remember recall it. Um, and we had this discussion because if a person isn't present, available to you when you're perhaps wanting to speak about something, do you actually say, do you actually pour out your heart um, at that moment, or just say, I'm fine? And we had a discussion about that. So the I'm fine could be as well. Ultimately, I am because I'm here and I'm not here. But there could be something beyond that, and I think that has to do with who do you um, talk to or share that you trust that you can go beyond. So, thank you for actually sharing that. I wanted to go back because it's something that I think does come up. This fine, but I think that many of us know who we can actually share our beyond find with. I think we know that, and so I think it's exhausting to share something with someone who's not open, available, doesn't care, doesn't understand, not empathetic.
Oh, and I think that there's also a time we talk about, we didn't talk about this in the session, but we talk about a lot. I hear the words a lot, trauma dumping, and how to successfully kind of share your story without trauma dumping. And I know that for me, when people trauma dump, I tend to mentally and kind of emotionally shut down. While I love to hear people's stories, when it becomes, when the story goes past the point and then it's just venting, I tend to find myself shutting off. Because and it depends on who it is, right? And it depends on what the situation is. It's not like all the time I do it, but I know, especially at big events like these, people can come one after another and they all have a story to tell, which is amazing. But it sometimes for me, it feels so weighted. And I know for me, I take on all of those feelings, I take on all of those emotions, and I wear them. Not like a badge of honor, but I wear them because I literally want you to feel better. So I take all those on. and I wear them, and it takes me a while to shake all that off. So I have really taken notice of that, and I don't really put myself in situations anymore to where I'm surrounded by a room full of people who are just trauma dumping, because we have all gone through so much trauma in our lives as warriors. Sometimes it can become so weighted, and
Yes.
I know for me, it's not healthy to be in that space for very long. I can't handle it. I've walked into rooms even at convention and like turned around and walked back out because I felt it immediately. I felt every story. I felt the weight of everything. I felt every tear. And someone was like, "Well, isn't that good?" And I'm like, "Yes, I think it's good. Some people it's cathartic for. Unfortunately for my soul, I can't handle it. It's like Heather's 101 on how to stay out of the hospital. I have to be mindful of how I keep myself healthy. And I think that it's watching out for that as well.
Definitely. Thank you. So, what else did we miss? We had what we tell ourselves, the narrative, and you mentioned the
And then
therapy.
we had grief. We talked about grief.
Okay.
Um, we did a poem. We actually read a poem, and it was called Anger by Jonetta Hendel. And there was a smaller group that day, and we all read a portion. And it's basically it speaks about the frustrations of people telling us how we should feel.
Hmm.
Mm. And I'll find it and put it on I'm sure I'll find it and put it on the Sickle Cell Mental Health website so that everyone can see it. I'm sure that Dr. Dejoie Brewer has a copy because this came from her. But it's don't tell me that you understand. Don't tell me that you know. Don't tell me that I will survive, how I will surely grow. Don't tell me this is just a test, that I am truly blessed, that I am chosen for this task apart from all the rest. Don't tell me don't come at me with answers that can only come from me. Don't tell me how my grief will pass, that I will soon be free. Don't stand in pious judgment of the bonds I must untie. Don't tell me how to suffer, and don't tell me how to cry. My life is filled with selfishness. My pain is all I see. But I need you. I need your love unconditionally. Accept me in my ups and downs. I need someone to share. Just hold my hand and let me cry and say, "My friend, I care." And so we really dove into that about what it looks like to grieve, um, and grieve the loss of, like I said, normalcy. I mean, how many times have we been in pain or in the hospital and missed out on big events? I know for me that when I was living in Michigan, my sickle cell was very cyclical, so I got it often around change of seasons, and I spent probably in Michigan a good quarter, if not more, of my birthdays and Christmas in the hospital every year because my birthday's in spring and Christmas is like smack dab right as that, like right as you're coming out of that really like winter time. Um, and I remember thinking, like, is this what my life is supposed to be? I'm supposed to be in the hospital on my birthday and Christmas every year, like, and I was often alone because, Christmas, my family's running around. I had a brother, they had to take him to family events and they'd go off. And I remember some Christmases being in the hospital alone from, 8 in the morning until my parents would get there at 5, 6 in the evening. I'd be by myself all day. And as a young person, when you're in the adult ward, it changes because you're by yourself. They don't have a bunch of Santa's not coming and there's not, people delivering toys to adults. There's, you're kind of up there by yourself. And I remember an uncle of mine saying, like, he said, well, you should just be grateful that you're alive. And I'm not quite sure what your problem is. And I remember just being like, but I'm in the hospital. You're still with the whole family. And I have to be in the hospital. And one year they actually let me go home. I was in the hospital for a long time. And they let me go home for 2 hours on Christmas Day. They took my IV. They didn't take my IVs out. They unwrapped me and they wrapped everything up really well. And they sent me home for 2 hours. I had to come back to the hospital. And I remember being so happy because that was like the first time in I think 4 or 5 years I actually celebrated Christmas with my family. Um, but I remember thinking, my family always saying, you just need to be appreciative you're alive. And I get that a lot from a lot of people.
Hmm.
Look good. So why are you complaining? Well, you look so healthy. Mm. Uh, it's like I smile so I don't cry. I laugh. I make jokes so that way you don't see the pain. And that's sometimes maybe how I handle it. But then there are people who I'm very open and honest with, and they see all of it. They see every last bit of it. And I'm a very private person when it comes to my sickled life. And I think that that was because of how I was raised.
So, and my question is, why was it seen as complaining versus, I think all of us need opportunities just to express how we feel. Um, and why is it seen as a complaint versus just
Oh, gosh, you would have to ask him. You'd have to ask my family. I wish I had an answer. Um, you know, it's funny because it's funny now that I'm no longer there, they say, well, we miss you at Christmas because I only go home every third year. And I kind of giggle to myself, like I wasn't there a lot before. So I'm not quite sure why you miss me, but okay. Um, I think that a lot of times it's just, and forgive me if I hurt anyone's feelings on the call this evening, or if you see this in later times, but I think it's a form of ignorance. People just truly not understanding what the burden of sickle cell is.
correct?
And I really think it is ignorance. And I don't fault anyone for ignorance unless it's willful. Um, but I think a lot of it is simply ignorance.
And I think which is why I bring it back to one's um, take when someone is expressing themselves to manage, because we have to manage through whatever it is. And so we express ourselves, um, and I think that just helps one to get through it. Um, but why hold it in, not being able to have a voice, be silent in our attempt to be in homeostasis? So that means having our body feeling good, our mind um, healthy, our spirit and our soul connected. And like anybody, sickle cell or not, chronic illness or not, I think we all have to find that balance, right? So I think, yes, ignorance is a good word to summarize if one doesn't truly understand. And I would just, I think that nowadays they say woke, but I want to go beyond that term because I think some people are just not present. They don't take the time to just listen. And the art of conversation is actually listening and sometimes not saying anything, but saying, I hear you. And
Mm, that's powerful.
you don't really have to say anything else. However, I think because we're so tuned in to everything quickly, there's an assumption that we have to have a magic phrase or something to come back. And sometimes it's just, I hear you, um, as the person says what they need to say, and then, one can move on. So, Farron says, in Houston, I went into the men's after dark session and the men's career, finance, and health. I asked the question, how would it feel to grow up as a child feeling like I'm a burden on my family and then now grow up to be an adult, being confident and now being responsible for my own life and a family? Um, and I'm going to say that's men and women, um, per people, you know, um, I think it's just when you're a child, you're not making a living, unless you're a star actor or something, but you're not making a living. And so there are people to take care of you. And it is unfortunate because if the people or person taking care of you, you can tell that it's how are they going to, if they're working two jobs or they're a single parent or what have you, it's just tough. And those are the feelings that that child, unfortunately, is going to have to manage. And into adulthood, that it really wasn't about being a burden. It's just what it is. And parents who are responsible have to figure that out. And sometimes they say it out loud to figure out what they have to do. You know, sometimes our warriors are having to do um, dialysis, for instance, right? Well, if they're a single parent and children can't come, got to figure that out. Doesn't mean the child is a burden. It just means I got to figure it out as a single parent, particularly if they don't have a lot of resources. Hey there.
Hi, Dima.
There's our other team member. Thank
There
you.
she goes.
Hi guys, how are you? Sorry, I'm traveling.
That's okay. It's a
Make sure-
traveling kind of a weekend.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure I joined you guys. I wanted to be a part of the conversation, but continue. I didn't want to interrupt you,
Oh,
Doctor.
no. That's fine. So I just think good point, Farhan, for moving to, um, unfortunately, being a child, feeling that way. But I would hope that parents, it takes time, become aware of letting the child know that they're not a burden. It's their responsibility to take care of the child, and therefore to find any and all ways to manage, because it is challenging when you cannot take your child to the hospital, or when you're the child with sickle cell disease and you're seeing what has to be done to coordinate all of this. So I think part of it is I'm just gonna I'm not hokey. This is how I truly feel, but it's actually loving one another. And so, can we just love one another and give each other grace? And and sometimes quiet our spirit. It's not always about us. I think if you love one another, it'll come back. So I want to be able to love you, Dima and Heather, and others, but I would also hope for grace and that that would be returned.
That's good. It's because it's reciprocal.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I heard all of that. Step away for just a quick second, but I did hear all of that. And I absolutely agree, Dr. Rowley. Thank you so much for saying that. We did talk a little bit about, because I did a boundaries conversation. We did talk about the boundaries that we create with people who love us and people who may not understand what we go through. And I talked about boundaries independently on a couple of different sessions. And something that came up was that burden, feeling like a burden as a child. And I remember feeling like that well into my 20s. And I remember going to therapy. And I remember the therapist asking, "Did you ask to be born?" And I said, "No." She said, "Did you ask for a sickle cell?" And I said, "No." She said, "Did your parents have you willingly and knowingly?" And I said, "Yeah, I was planned." And she said, "So why do you feel like a burden?" And I said, "Because I have sickle cell and they have to take so much of my time. They take so much of their time to lay sitting with me in the hospital and, ER visits at 3 a.m. and, all of the work and the doctor's appointments." And she said, "Okay, but did you ask for any of that?" And I said, "No." And I think that was the first time in my life I'd really understood. I did not ask to be born. My parents asked for a child, and it wasn't my job to feel like a burden because I didn't ask. And I remember my aunt telling me something when my son was little, when he was first born, and I had a rough pregnancy. And my aunt said, "Oh, he's going to owe you everything." And I said, "No, he owes me nothing because he didn't ask to be here." And it's a different mindset. And I didn't realize that raising him up to understand that he doesn't owe me You're your own human, and I'm so proud of who you are as your own person. You don't owe me. You don't owe me to take care of me when I get old. Everything that you do after you become an adult is your own decision. And but I think it's again breaking those generational curses and thinking about how we've kind of changed as a human, as a people, as warriors. But it was literally in that moment, and it took a couple of weeks to set in. Right, it didn't just hit me all of a sudden like I'm not a burden. It took some time. That was some growth, but it was one of the best therapy sessions I've ever had in my life. Um, in regards to really realizing that I'm not a burden.
No,
And if I am a burden, it's because they have to change their attitudes towards me.
thank you. I was going to say one last thing. I'm looking at our time and continuing with Farhan and the men's after dark session, just to um, be mindful of and to state what it is that he's stating. He said the men today felt like they had to prove something to themselves as what it was to be a man and be heard. And on that note, I have heard that even when advocating, when we're advocating, I'm thinking of a particular young man right now, and was having difficulty, which is why we were called in to advocate. And he broke down and said, "This situation makes me feel like I'm not a man." And so I just had to, there's nothing I can say because I'm not one. And even though I have sickle cell, we're not in the same space. I just had to hear and listen. And it was heartbreaking because it was exactly how he felt with how they were treating him. And and I think part of that was, why did it take, he knew to call for advocacy, but why did it take yet another person to use their voice when he couldn't use his voice effectively to be heard? And I think that this is something we probably should probably come back to, since it is, we're at time. But it is real. I have heard that it affected me. So I didn't know what to say in the moment, but to listen and say, I hear you. And so sorry that that's happening. We're glad to be here for you, but that doesn't remove that those providers made him feel, that's what he took from that the words he was using, which was similar to what we were saying, were dismissed. And so it becomes a challenge, particularly when you're in and out and you may have family, and being able to participate. But that's a whole nother session. I know we were talking about grief. We didn't get a chance to get into that, everyone. So perhaps next time. But this was pretty good in terms of, um, I felt, even though I wasn't there in person, I was there virtually, and that was, I felt connected. I did enjoy the sessions that I moderated or was speaking at, and I hope you all did too. But Heather, you were there, so um, how do you want to close us out before we do our breath work?
Real quick to close us out, I think that we should share one memorable moment from Warrior Con, just really quick, quick sentence, and then we'll do 3 collective breaths and we will close out.
All righty. So those of you who are on, um, can you put in the chat your takeaway? We do want to end as we started, collectively with joy. And if you can put in the chat if you were able to participate, whether it was in person or virtually.
I'll start. My most
Sure.
joyful moment was hugging y'all. Oh my gosh. I was so happy. I hugged so many people. My arms were sore at the end of it. Um, So that was my big thing was I got to like see people and hug people and hold people
Yes.
and like that was great for me. My soul needed it.
What can I share with you guys that 8 hugs a day is on the scale of good mental health.
I
So
was so filled up and mentally healthy then. I was I'm pretty sure people were sick of hugging me. I think I hugged Dima like 6 times at one point. I was like, she's gonna be like, girl, if you don't get off of me.
and
And
Dima,
poor Sharonda, she just wore me like a robe. I just was like following her around, hugging her. Um,
Dima, what was your takeaway since you were there?
I was typing it in the chat. So there's so many there's so many takeaways. I think I love the connection the most, but the ball, to have
Oh,
all the children come in
oh,
and they be announced as royalty, I think that was my favorite part. And the I had an etiquette class that I did for the children for the ball, so I'm
okay.
still getting texts from the parents saying, um, my daughter is setting the table and such like and doing it the proper way and teaching me how to do how to be, how to eat classy and be in elegance and be royal. So I'm still getting feedback from that, and I think that's
Mm.
amazing because they feel like they're royalty. Every child felt, I made them say why they're royalty, and every child had an amazing answer. So
I love that.
yeah, that filled my heart.
Beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Dr. Rowley?
Well, um, I won't focus on the part that I missed everyone, but the joy. I spoke on sound and I spoke on how to file a complaint based upon our PEAT project. But I would have to say, as I started out this when we began, I really enjoyed connecting with everyone during the sound. I really felt that people were not going, mm-mm, but they were embracing, saying, okay. And so I like that. And I like that time period that we have the 10 minutes. So that was my takeaway.
I'm
Uh,
a little guilty with the sound, Dr. Rowley. When I came in the middle of it, I didn't know what it was. And I was like, what? Because I heard it on someone else's computer. And I was like, what is that? I was like, I was, what is that? And then I heard you get on. I was like, oh, that's the sound. At first, my brain could not figure it out. My brain was like too stimulated to handle that. So I do have to say that because I was like,
and people were saying, yeah. And then after a while, which is why I liked it, they were saying, first minute, trying to figure it, but they walked away um, feeling good, connected, focused. It's supposed to be very helpful for people with ADHD as well.
hmm.
So
And Sharonda wrote in the text
I am.
about her experience. I am excellent. Girl, you are excellent.
You're,
Sharonda was awarded,
so
but not only that, I don't feel that people didn't see behind the scenes as much or behind the curtains. And I don't think people understand. I mean, I think people did understand on some level of the work that Sharonda put into this convention, but I don't think that they understand on a behind the scenes level. And I saw her. Um, and I just like I don't want to cry because it made me cry, but I saw how hard she worked for this, and it was um, it was outstanding. I There's no other words for it other than outstanding. This woman was everywhere at all times, and I don't know how she did it, but Sharonda was absolutely amazing. So yes, ma'am, you are excellent.
excellent.
And you exude excellence, like Sharonda.
Absolutely.
Like, you not only you expect excellence, you are excellence. It's something that permeates through your pores. So I, hands down to you, I was so impressed during the convention. Yeah, I'm proud of you, sis.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, girl. And then Carla Colfer wrote in the comments, in person after so long was a good kind of grief.
Mm,
Family that I hadn't seen.
mm.
Yeah, it did feel like family. And I got to meet Carla in person, and she lives here in Dallas, or she lives close by. She lives about, I don't know, half an hour away. I didn't even know that. Like, like
Mhm.
what? I'm like, I got a Carla here. So now I have a Carla here. So that's
Okay.
that's good to know.
Everyone did a good job on this convention. Thank you so much. They were appreciative. So I think ultimately, everyone, this was our uh, opportunity. We hadn't been with you all for some time and wanted to just catch up, check in. And Heather, can you share with everyone the schedule up until we have our convention? Hey, the summit, which is September 13th through 16th in we're saying Los Angeles, California. It's actually Torrance, in LA, and hope to see everyone there, whether in person and or virtually. So I want to feel the love as well. Come September, do you have the schedule for the next, say for the month of
I
August?
I don't have it pulled up, but I can do that. We will. I will post what we're doing for the rest of the week. But I do want to speak with Dr. Deja Brewer. She wasn't able to attend today. She was called away, but I will definitely post it on Facebook. I'll make sure that either the interns or myself this week will post it into Facebook, so you all will see. And I will also send it to Sharonda if she wants to put it out there into the ether as well.
Perfect. And thank you, Carla. So she's already registered. Hey.
Hey.
So why don't we at this time do our 3 community breaths and then allow you to go
Absolutely.
to your afternoon and evening, or evening and morning, depending upon where you're tuning in from. All right. So this was a receiving moment. That's why we had our hands up. And now it's time to hold that in. So feel comfortable putting your hands face down on your thighs. We're just going to do 3 community breaths. The 3, breathe in for 3, hold for 3, and really force it out. 6, count of 6. We'll do that 3 times together. So here we go. Breathe in, hold, and really breathe it out. Breathe in, hold, and really breathe it out. This is our last community breath. Breathe in, hold, and force all of it out at the count of 6. All right. We're thankful that you guys spent your 1 hour with us this afternoon, evening. We will be returning, and soon you'll see the schedule appear on our pages and on Facebook. So thanks again for everyone, ladies, Heather, Dima. Thank you. Enjoyed our time together, and we're out.
Good night, everyone.